Hi, my name is Spencer, and I am a health educator with MHW. In this video series, I'm going to walk you through how to set up a meal plan. We're going to cover how to lose weight, how to keep the weight off long term, and most importantly, what do you need to do if you want to adjust your plan? If you're getting bored, if you're not losing weight, if you're unhappy for some reason, or if you have a temporary challenge like a holiday or a vacation, or you're going through a death in your family or something like that, how do you adjust your plan when it's not working or you're not happy with it so that you don't have to just give up altogether and you can keep moving forward? Before we get into the video, I want to say two things. The first is, I don't mind if you never pursue one of our programs, if you never go to the website, if you never watch any more of our videos, if you never spend a penny with us. The stuff that we're going to go over in these videos is going to be practical advice that should apply to any weight loss effort. Whether you're going to start a diet, whether you're looking at a new exercise plan, whether you're thinking about surgery or something like that long term. The advice that we give here will be practical advice that will apply to almost everybody, and will give you the power to start doing these things on your own. So even if you never pursue anything through us, that's okay. The advice that we're going to put through in this video series should still be helpful for you, and I hope that you think about it at the very least, even if you aren't going to pursue one of our plans directly. The second thing that I want to say before we even get started is that the people who are the best at managing their weight long term are not the people with the best diets or the best exercise plans or the best genetics or the best health or the most money or the best doctors. The people who do the best at losing weight and keeping it off long term are the people with the best support system. How do you stay motivated? If you're feeling like you're getting ready to give up, who do you go to get inspiration? How do you stay accountable? If you know that you're not going to keep yourself in check, who's going to keep an eye on you and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to? How do you get ideas? Where do you go for recipes? Where do you go for advice? If you have a new challenge that you haven't faced before, you're going to a restaurant for the first time, where do you go to get that information? The people who do the best long term are the ones who have the best resources to be able to get that advice when they need it. So my first tip before we even get into anything else is to figure out who your support system's going to be. It can be friends, it can be family, you might have a doctor, you might have a personal trainer, you might have a partner who's going to go through this process with you, but it also might be an online forum. It might be a YouTube channel that you go to. It might be a place where you can interact and get advice digitally, and you never meet this person face to face. It might be us. Maybe we can be part of the support system for you, but make sure that you know where that support system is going to be and who you're going to turn to when you have questions and you need help. I say that especially before we start this video series because there's a decent chance you're going to have questions about the things that we cover here. And I want you to know that's normal. And when you do have those questions, you should check out our website and you should figure out how to get in contact with our office. Whether that means sending us an email or leaving a comment on our YouTube channel or actually finding our schedule for when we live stream so that you can ask a question directly to us and we can face-to-face right there get your questions answered. That is where the most success is going to come from. Hopefully everything we go through in these videos makes sense and it might click right away for you and you'll be ready to hit the ground running, but there's a good chance you're going to have questions at some point down the line. I can almost guarantee it. So get that good support system. That's all I have to say before we get into the series. Now let's get started. Okay, this is going to be the 5th video in our series on creating your own weight loss plans. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to adjust your plan, how to make changes if you are unhappy. Most of all, that means what do you do if you're not losing weight, or if your weight loss starts to slow down, or maybe you've been doing pretty well for a while and you're at your goal, but you're starting to gain weight. What do you do at that point? But I also want to say that everything we talk about in this video is going to address any other change you would want to make too. If you are unhappy for any reason, you should think about adjusting your plan and figure out how to get happy, how to fix it. If you feel like you're getting bored and it's not working for you because there's not enough variety, you should work on that. If you feel like it's too expensive, whatever plan you've put together, you don't think you can afford it anymore and you want to try and find ways to bring the costs down, you should work on that. if you feel like you just don't have enough options to handle different situations that you come up to in your life. How to handle stress, how to handle emotional challenges, whatever it is that you might be facing if you are for some reason unhappy with your current plan. And again, mostly that's if you're not losing weight, you're going to be unhappy. But for any other reason, if you are unhappy with your plan, how can we make changes in a smart way and not just start changing everything and then risk all the results that we have so far? So that's what we're going to address in this video. Before we get started, I want to talk about your mentality. This is the most important thing as you start to put together your plan, but especially as you start to want to tinker and make changes. What should it feel like? How should you be thinking about the plan? And mostly I just want to say this. Dieting in general, as I have said in every other video in this series so far, is not fun. Not the way that we're used to dieting, not the way that we're used to thinking about weight loss. I had a client one time actually say it's a punishment, and it's supposed to be a punishment for all the bad foods that we ate. Now we have to put in the time and put in the money and hurt. We have to go through this miserable process in order to lose the weight, to undo all the things that we did wrong. And I think that that's a terrible way to be thinking about weight loss, and it's also entirely unsustainable. It is the reason why we quit, and I've said that in every video so far as well. I would prefer to have you guys thinking about your weight loss in a more positive manner. And this is the way that I like to phrase it. If you go to a holiday event, it's Christmas, and you have two sisters and they both made a batch of chocolate chip cookies and they both have their own recipes, and they say, try our cookies, tell us which one you like best. In that moment, that does not feel like a chore. You're not annoyed. You don't roll your eyes and go, oh man, what a pain. I have to try these two different kinds of chocolate chip cookies and see which one tastes better. I have to give my opinion on it. You're excited. It's something new. You think you'll probably like them both either way. It's a fun process. If you go to a restaurant and it's one of your favorite restaurants and they have something new on the menu, or they're offering a special for that day, you don't feel like it's a pain in your butt to have to try it. It's just exciting. Here's something new. We're going to go and explore. And yeah, sometimes those things don't turn out to be your favorite things. And sometimes you try it and you say, I wouldn't order that again. But it's a overall happy experience because you're trying something in the hope that you're going to enjoy it. That is the way that you should be approaching every day of your life. And I really mean it, not just towards your weight loss, towards everything that you have going on. You should be pursuing what's going to make you happy, or at the very least, what's going to be the least inconvenient, what's going to cause you the least amount of pain. But ideally, you want to enjoy it. You're trying to find things that are going to work and they're going to improve your life in some way. So you should be happy to go out there and to do those things. Now, sometimes it's a lot of work. Sometimes you try a lot of things before you figure out the one thing that works for you the way you want it to. And that can be frustrating sometimes. But the overall process is in pursuit of this end goal where you're going to like the things that you're doing. It is my absolute favorite experience as a coach when we get to share something with someone and it surprises them. We say, here's a recipe for pizza. And they go, oh man, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know this was a possibility. This is good for you? I'm allowed to eat these? And we go, yes, yeah. It then opens up the world a little bit, makes it a little bit brighter. It becomes fun when you understand that that's what you're looking for. You're not forcing yourself to eat Brussels sprouts because you have to. You're experimenting with Brussels sprouts to see if you can make them taste good. And the same goes for physical activity. I like when I have somebody in the group that says, oh, I went bowling this week and I counted that towards my physical activity. And somebody else goes, oh, I didn't know you could count that. Bowling that's not exercise. That's fun. I would do that anyways. Or a chore that you have to do around the house. I had somebody this week that said, I didn't get a lot of exercise this week because I couldn't go to the gym because it snowed and I was stuck in. And somebody else said, well, I got lots of activity because I was shoveling that snow. And the first person, something clicked for them and they said, oh, I didn't know that you could count that. And all of a sudden, it starts to make sense. All of a sudden it starts to work. It might not always be enjoyable, like I said, but you're trying to find the things that fit in that way, that you would like to do, that you'll be able to do long term. If there's any encouragement that I can give you guys, it would be to always be pursuing that, keep an open mind, and be aware that it's about fun. I'm not trying to take away your bacon. I'm trying to give you something that you will like just as much and will also help you lose weight and get those goals too. That's what we're working towards. With that said, I do want this video to not be as long as the video before this, so let me give you the fundamentals of how to start experimenting and how to start adjusting your plans. Okay, so I'm going to click over to another screen here. All right, there are 4 steps in the process when you are going through trying to manage your weight. The first step is that you have to ask the question, am I happy? Are you happy with where your weight is? Are you happy with the goals that you have achieved? Are you happy with your life, with the foods that you're eating, with the routine that you have, with the physical activity that you're doing, with the money that you're spending? Again, I think you should be doing this in every area of your life. Are you happy with your career? Are you happy with this or that? And your relationships. And if you aren't happy, well, then it's time to go on to step number 2. But so long as you're happy with a certain aspect, you don't have to do anything different. If you have a plan and things are going well, continue to follow along doing the things that are working. Just keep in mind that at some point something might change. So it's sometimes helpful, even if you are happy right now, to maybe look into the future and think about if something might change that would make you unhappy. But so long as you're happy, you're good. Step number 1 is complete. Step number 2 is if you are unhappy. So if you're unhappy, we go on to step number 2. At that point you ask, do I have a plan? Is there something that I'm doing right now to try and get happy? Do I have a plan for how I want to change my diet to lose weight? Do I have a plan for how I'm going to build more confidence? Do I have a plan for how I'm going to be more active, to feel more fit? How I'm going to work on my medical issues, okay? And again, I won't stress this anymore after this point, but I think that this also applies to other areas of your life. If you're unhappy with your career, you got to make a plan to figure out what you want to do next to further yourself. If you're unhappy with your relationships, you got to make a plan to figure out where you go from there. The reason why this step is so important is because a lot of times we are unhappy, but we really haven't been doing anything to fix it. And it's hard to be unhappy if you're not really working on it anyways. If you've gained weight in the last month or the last 10 years, but you really haven't been paying attention to it, you haven't been trying to pursue any weight loss, it can't be surprising that nothing has changed. If you want something to change, you got to figure out exactly what you're going to do to work on it. And I think it's important to make sure that your plan is a true plan and that it is measurable and that it's specific. Don't say, oh, I'm going to try and eat more vegetables, try and make better choices, and leave it open-ended like that. Make it concrete. I'm going to have at least 5 vegetables every day. I'm going to do at least this much exercise. Have an exact plan. But if you have no plan at all, that would be the next step. If you're unhappy, you've got to make a plan. If you have not made a plan yet, you may want to go back onto the website, mhwonline.com, watch video number 4, and in that video we walk through how to make a good plan for weight loss specifically. So that's step number 2. Make a plan. Again, if you don't have a plan, you're probably going to get in trouble. In step number 3, we're starting to talk about how to assess that plan. Okay, now I have a plan. I've been trying to follow this plan. Is it working? Do I need to make any changes? Okay. If you are, for some reason, unhappy with the results of the plan that you have, then we go on to step number 3. So, step number 3, we're asking, am I following the plan 100%? Okay, I have a plan. Now, am I doing it? I said that I was going to have 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Am I actually having 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? The reason why this is so important is because if you have a plan but you're not following it, then you're kind of in the same place as you were in step number 2. You'd like to lose more weight, but you're not actually taking the steps to make it happen. If you're trying to make better choices, but you're not actually making better choices, then you're not going to see the results. So having a plan is not quite enough. You need a plan, but then you have to follow the plan. If you are not following your plan 100%, then in step number 3, your goal is to work on following the plan. And specifically, what that means is changing the way that you're approaching the plan so that you can be happy following the plan. I'm going to address that a little bit more in just a second. We're going to give some specific examples here. But if you're not eating all of the fruits and vegetables you're supposed to be eating, then one thing that you can do is change the types of fruits and vegetables. Maybe the reason you're not eating all the ones you're supposed to is just because you don't like them. So change the way that you approach that plan. Try different recipes, do them at different times, put them together in different ways. There are a lot of ways to do that. But that would be your goal here at step number 3. I have a plan, I'm not following it 100%. I gotta get to the point where I'm following it. That might be getting some extra accountability. It might be changing the way that I'm doing things, but it's an internal change. The plan is not necessarily a bad plan. I'm just not following it. Okay? Once you get to the point where you're following a plan 100%, then we can go on to step number 4. So let's say I have a plan and I'm following it 100% and I'm still not getting the results that I want. Well, this is probably the main reason why you guys are watching this video. The first 3 steps tend to be kind of obvious, but step number 4 is where things get tricky. I have a plan, I'm following it 100%, I'm not losing weight. It's not a good plan. It's time to adjust what the plan is. So that's where we go on to the meat of what we need to get into in this video. Where can I make changes to my plan if I'm not getting the results I want so that I can start to see better results? At this point, let's reflect on what a good plan has, and then we can talk about where you can make changes. Recall from previous videos that there are 2 core things you need to be doing if you're interested in losing weight. Okay. Number 1 is you have a plan with 6 specific measurable goals. We went through those in the last video, video number 4. I'll bring those up on the screen in a second. Number 2 is that overall, you're pursuing a goal of moving your food choices further down the calorie guide. Okay, let's review that one first, and then we'll take a look at the 6 rules. For the calorie guide, we have this wonderful handout, which you can download off the website if you haven't downloaded it already, but you should recognize this from video number 4. What we've done on this handout is organize the foods you want to eat on a scale from 1 to 10. You can see the numbers 1 to 10 going across the top here. And as you come further up the chart, the foods become higher in calories, more dense, more concentrated calories, and therefore more likely to give you trouble and cause you to gain weight. Okay, the reason why these foods in the red background are so tricky is because even if you just eat one bite, even if you just have one sip, even if you just have a little taste, that can be enough to make you gain weight. That's where these foods can become very, very scary when it comes to weight loss. So overall, the goal is not to cut anything out, it's not to restrict yourself, it's not to limit anything. The goal is simply to try and make food choices that move us further down this chart. Or I guess for you guys, the video screen, further down this chart, this way, towards the 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay. There are big changes that you can make. If I'm having bacon, I can go all the way and stop eating bacon and start eating tofu instead. I'll zoom in a little bit just so that you guys can see exactly what I'm pointing to here. Tofu is very, very low on the chart. If I switch from bacon to tofu, I'd be moving all the way down the chart. I'd be making a big change. You would definitely see some results on the scale if you did that. But that's not even our primary goal. We don't have to make big, giant shifts like that. We just need to be moving incrementally towards that goal. If you want to talk about weight loss on a whole, what it comes down to is making better choices. And that simply means moving further down this chart. So let's say I was having bacon for breakfast. Well, maybe I start having sausage for breakfast instead. It's a little bit better. I'm going to see better results because it's making a change. That's what we're aiming to do. If you can do that, that's great. Be proud of yourself. You can always then watch the scale and reevaluate and see how things are going from there. If you make a more dramatic change, you'll see a more traumatic effect on the scale. The bigger the changes you make, the bigger the weight loss is going to be. But even a small change counts. I can't overstate that. So if I switch from bacon, I start eating sausage, I should see something happen. If I switch from sausage, pork sausage, and I start having turkey sausage is somewhere in this range. It's about a 5.5. You can see poultry is right here. So turkey sausage is just a little bit higher than generic poultry. That would be a better choice. And it's an even bigger switch than the one from bacon to sausage. So okay, I could make that change. If I wanted to make an even bigger change, I could come further down the chart. Instead of turkey sausage, I could have some kind of lean cold cut with my breakfast. I do that sometimes. I'll get deli meats like deli ham or deli chicken, and I'll put those into my scrambled eggs in the morning. Well, that's even better than doing turkey sausage would be. So we're coming even further. Chicken would also be a decent choice. I do have some recipes for chicken sausage that we play around with, and I think there might be one on our website actually. But I could do that. And if I wanted to, I could come one step further than that. I could look at tofu, sure. I think a little bit more fun for me personally is to look at seafood. I like crab meat with my breakfast. Or maybe I like shrimp with my eggs in the morning. We can keep going as far down the chart as we want to go. And the more we make those changes, the more we're going to start to see better and better results. And every choice you make throughout the day has that opportunity. If I was having grains, maybe right now I'm having flour tortillas, or I'm having fried rice. Well, if I wanted to, or actually maybe I'm doing pasta with Alfredo sauce, that high-fat cheesy sauce. If I wanted to make a better decision, I'd just start moving further down the chart. Let me try eating pasta with marinara sauce, or pasta with a low-fat Alfredo sauce, or a low-calorie Alfredo sauce. There is a low-calorie Alfredo sauce on our website if you want it. Maybe I do rice instead of my flour tortillas or fried rice. I can do white rice or brown rice, and maybe get a good sauce that would go with that. I could go further. The difference between a flour tortilla and just generic bread is right here. White bread is normally going to be a little bit better than a flour tortilla in most cases. If I want to go even further, I could go corn tortillas. If I wanted to, we could keep going down the line. We can look at other grains like couscous or quinoa. I like corn grits. That's a fun one to play around with, and it's sort of regional to where I am in the world. But we could go further down. I could make a dish that used cereal. This is a generic cold cereal, something like Cheerios, for example. Even one with maybe marshmallows in it, Lucky Charms. Or I could go even further than that and do oatmeal. And a lot of this is then going to beg more questions. Where do we go from here? If I'm going to have oatmeal instead of having, what was over here? Fried rice? Well, how do I make a dinner with oatmeal as a side dish where I used to have fried rice? And if I'm going to do that, how do I make it taste good? What's going to go with it? What are the rest of the ingredients there? And then we have to solve all the other problems. How much does it cost? Where do I get it from? How long is it going to take to cook? Can I preserve it? Can I freeze it? Can I portion size and save some for later? All of those questions will come up as well. But keep in mind that the core goal here is just that we're moving further down the chart. Moving further down the chart. Okay, we're going that way. If you're doing that, you're going to see better results. 100% of the time, if you're making a change to your plan, if you're making a change to your daily routine, and you want to lose more weight, or you want to stop gaining weight, you're moving further down the chart. That is your primary objective. Okay? You can also focus on increasing your physical activity, but those are the only two ways to do it. You want to find ways to make changes to move further down the chart. Now, let me also address here that you don't have to move entirely down the chart. Pasta is here. Maybe I feel like I'm having too much pasta, and one of the changes that I want to make is using less pasta. Well, I could get rid of all my pasta altogether and just do vegetable side dishes. Vegetables are very good. I'll show you they're down here. Most of your vegetables are here. Even starchy vegetables like potatoes are over here. Salads are over here. Spinach is over here. So let's say I was trying to tackle my pasta. I don't have to get rid of all of the pasta and replace it with broccoli. I could do maybe half of a scoop of pasta and half of it broccoli. Mix it together in the same bowl and have it look more like a stir fry or a soup or something like that. That's where a lot of the Coll strategies will start to come into play, and that's where you start talking about portion size. It's the only place that I talk about portion size. If I'd like to eat less chicken, here's chicken, and I feel like my portion for chicken is too high, I could do half as much chicken, and I could replace that chicken with shrimp, or I could replace that chicken with crab meat. And there are a lot of dishes that do that. I have a lot of soups, for example, that have both chicken and shrimp inside. And I have dishes where I make chicken and then I also have a little crab cake with it. Or I make chicken and then I have crab meat piled on top of it. That doesn't feel like a sacrifice, right? I'm eating less chicken, but I'm doing it by moving further down the chart. I'm replacing those foods with other things. Okay? You're not just trying to get rid of whatever you're currently eating. You're trying to bring something else in to replace it. I can't stress that enough. Now, we do talk about this chart in other videos, so I don't want to beat this any further than we already have, but this is key. When you start making changes to your plan, these are the types of changes that you want to make. I want to see something that's going to help me move further down the chart. If it does not help me move further down the chart, and it does not give me more physical activity, then it's not going to do anything. It's not going to create a better result for me. All right. That is one of the things you absolutely can't negotiate on when you start making changes. The other thing that you cannot negotiate on when you start making changes is the 6 original rules. And again, go back to video number 4 if you want a summary of those rules and how we develop those and exactly why they're so important. But I will outline them for you right here. They are right above here. Whatever your plan is, if you want to make a change, that's okay. We'll start making changes. Do not give up any of these 6 rules. Whatever your plan is when you're done making changes, it should still have fruits and vegetables. It should still address meal replacements. And more than anything, that just means fast, convenient, healthy foods. Things you don't have to think about, you just know that they're good for you. There's a lot of ways that that might take form. It should have physical activity. It should have some goal that you're tracking on a regular basis. It should have some type of record that you're keeping of what you're eating and what you're doing for physical activity. And finally, it should have some kind of support. You can make changes to these plans, but you cannot remove those aspects of the plan. Keep those 2 things in mind. If you're unhappy with what's going on, that's okay. Change the plan, but make sure that your overall goal is that you're moving further down the chart and that you still have these 6 rules in place when all is said and done. Now, there may be some other rules that you put in and down at the bottom, some bonuses, but it better still have at least these 6. With that said, let me show you the most common ways to make changes. And I'm going to show you kind of in an overview, and then I'm going to go back to some of the custom plans that we did in the last video, and I'll show you how we might make some adjustments to those plans if the people that were following them were not happy. Okay, so let me scroll back. These are the 5 main ways that you're going to start to adjust your plan. Okay, if you're not getting the results you want, these are the 5 main places that I would recommend starting to look at what you're doing. Now, these will address both step number 3 and step number 4 that we just discussed. how do I approach the plan, or overall, do I want a new plan altogether? Both of those are options when you start thinking about increasing your weight loss. So that'll make a little bit more sense as we get into it, but let's just hop right in. Variety is option number 1. I think this will be the first thing that comes to your mind immediately. When you're unhappy with your plan and you're thinking about making changes, the first thing that you're going to think about doing is just changing the specifics of what you're doing. Okay? Variety is changing the type of approach you're taking to the original 6 rules. Let's go back. For the 6 rules, we've got fruits and vegetables, meal replacements, physical activity, tracking a goal, record keeping, and support. How does variety apply to each of these 6? Okay, so for fruits and vegetables, variety is pretty straightforward. It's recipes. You could try eating different kinds of fruits and vegetables and see if you get a better result. Try eating more salads, for example. Try doing more broccoli. Try doing more frozen vegetables or canned vegetables. Try eating them cooked in different ways. Try roasting them. Try grilling them. Try boiling them. The number one thing that variety addresses is boredom and interest. If you're getting tired of the things you're eating, you probably need some new options. But also, variety is really good at tackling situational challenges. I have trouble when I go to a restaurant, or I have trouble when I'm on vacation. I should probably be eating different vegetables when I go to a restaurant than I eat when I'm at home. When I go to a restaurant, I'm more likely to eat a baked potato because it helps me feel like I have a big filling meal. And I need that when I'm around other people and they're all eating appetizers and junk that I shouldn't be getting into. When I'm on vacation, I want more raw fruits and vegetables because in those situations, I want things that are easy, I want to relax, I don't want to do a lot of chopping and cooking and preparation. So it makes sense that I want to limit the amount of effort I put in. Okay? This is going to be true pretty much for any situation that you go into. When you are sick, and you're not feeling well, there are going to be certain fruits and vegetables that you don't want to eat. And there are going to be others that are going to make more sense. If you just got some bad news and you're looking for comfort foods, there are going to be some fruits and vegetables that help you relieve that need for comfort food. And there will be other fruits and vegetables that just don't do anything for you. If you're craving sweets, there are going to be certain fruits and vegetables that will allow you to have an outlet for that craving. And if I tell you, I know you're craving chocolate, but go eat another salad, you're probably just going to get angry. Variety is one of the things that you're going to have to pull for all the time. But if you're not losing weight, my recommendation is that as far as variety is concerned, you start pulling in fruit and vegetable options that are bigger in volume. So salads, soups, where you get a big bowl of soup because that broth stretches it out. Looking for sauces and spices that are very low in calories. Maybe you've been doing a lot of vegetables with dip. That's okay. Try looking for some dips that are different and lower in calories. Move further down that chart. Okay, those are things you can do. You can try and do maybe less starchy vegetables and more classical vegetables. You can explore with that. Just keep in mind that you're also trying to juggle your personal need. So again, when I'm at a restaurant, I need potatoes. Even if they're a little bit higher in calories than other vegetables, they help me get through that situation. When I'm looking for comfort food, I need potatoes. Even if there might be better vegetables, I'm trying to get through my emotions. I need to solve both problems. So just be aware of that. When it comes to meal replacements, variety works the exact same way. It's about trying different types, different recipes, different ways of approaching the idea of meal replacements. Okay, so recipes should be the first thing that comes to your mind. But you can also look at alternative options. So to start, I'm going to bet that most of you are going to go to our website and look at the meal replacements that are already there that we sell. That's a good place to start. We've already endorsed those. We know that they're safe and healthy and good for you. But when you need more variety, you might look at other brands of meal replacements. We list some of those on our website too. If you want to order meal replacements from other places and try different brands, you have some options there that we've already recommended. Maybe from there you want to look for even more meal replacements that we don't even list. That's fine. Every once in a while, I like to just go to the grocery store and look through the prepared meals, the shakes, the nutrition bars, see what's good for me. make sure that it follows the requirements that we've set forward. But so long as they fit within the constraints that we have, those can all be good replacements. You might find some meal replacements that overall create a better weight loss for you. Okay? We'll talk a little bit more about that as we dip into some of the other ideas too. You may also look for non-typical meal replacements, which I have mentioned in other videos. We talked about canned tuna being a meal replacement because it's portion size and it's packaged and it's already taken care of. We've talked about 100-calorie packs being meal replacements. Or if you want to get like chicken breasts that are already measured into individual servings, you could call that a meal replacement. You're starting to get a little bit looser, but that's a place where you can go and explore if you want to experiment as well. And again, when you start talking about variety and boredom and necessity, you're going to need to look at alternative options for meal replacements. One that becomes very critical is fast food and convenience store and restaurant meals. These are things that you can get if you go out to eat. They are meal replacements. It's something that's prepared, that's fast, that's easy. We actually just did a meal plan on our live stream this week where we had someone who knew they go out to eat pretty much every day at work. So they wanted a staple, one meal that they knew if they ever went out to eat, that would always be a safe one that they could get. You can think about meal replacements in a lot of different contexts, but just be aware you want those meal replacements as a part of your plan. There are just lots of different options for the way that you choose to use them. And there's lots of different options for which ones you use. And when you're talking about variety, you're also talking about preparation. You can try using different sauces and different spices. You can try mixing vegetables with your meal replacements. There's a lot of room to explore on that side of things. When we go to physical activity and we talk about variety, we're talking about doing different types of physical activity. Let me try doing yoga. Let me try walking. Let me try running. Let me try playing a sport. Let me try tennis. Let me try bowling. Let me try a video game. There are video games that force you to be active now, virtual reality things and games along that sort of path. Let me try gardening. Let me try volunteering at a pet shelter for a little bit, and I'll get activity playing with the puppies. Let me get a job that's active, maybe part-time job, maybe something on the weekends, or let me volunteer somewhere. That's going to encourage me to be more active. Let me start doing stuff around the house that'll get me more active. Let me get a piece of equipment that'll get me more active. Let me try a gym membership and test out a couple of different classes that'll push me to be more active. Anything that gets you moving is going to count towards physical activity. So you really should be thinking about all the different types of movement you could do and where you can go that would encourage you to get more movement. That would be the goal if we're trying to lose more weight. There's a lot of options for physical activity. Please do not be locked into exercise. If you want more suggestions, make sure that you get a good support system. You know where you can call and ask and get more ideas. And if you're at all unsure, come to one of our live streams. Check out our website. For our goal and our tracking component of the plan, when we talk about variety, we would be talking about having a different goal or more goals. So say, for example, I know that I set a goal to lose weight, but that's not really motivating me enough. I feel like I need a stronger goal. Maybe I should set a goal with a deadline. By 3 months from now, here's where I want to be. Or maybe I should think about some of the other areas where my weight affects me. Maybe my goal is to get into a smaller clothing size, or it's to improve my physical fitness in some way. I'd like to maybe in 3 months be able to do 20 push-ups. Let me build up to that. Or I'd like to work on my flexibility. I really like physical goals personally. Maybe your goal is a medical goal. Maybe it's thinking a little bit deeper about, how does my weight affect other people, or how does it affect other areas of my life? In terms of variety, that's one way that you can play around with your plan here, is to think about other things that you're working towards. The other thing that you can do as a part of this plan is change the way that you are tracking your goal. We mentioned for weight loss, and really for all your goals, the main consideration that you're thinking about as far as your tracking is how often you do it. Do I test my weight on the scale once a week? Do I weigh myself every day? Do I weigh myself twice a week? Do I weigh myself once a month? playing around with the way you do that might get you better results. Specifically, weighing more often usually has a nice benefit to it. You can also change the way that you are tracking your goal. So, am I keeping it on paper? Am I putting my goal in my phone? Do I have a spreadsheet in my computer? Do I share my goal with somebody else? That can be super helpful. If you know somebody else is keeping an eye on your progress each week and they're asking you how you're doing, it might be a little bit more accountability there. That's variety, just changing the type of thing that you're tracking, the way that you're doing it. Then you have record keeping. And remember, for record keeping, we're writing down what we eat and what we do for physical activity. As far as variety goes, the main source of variety here is where you keep your records, just like when we were talking a second ago. And it's also what you put in your records, how much detail. So this is one of the places that I think is often really important for people to experiment. When you keep records, do you write down everything you eat, or do you just keep a tally? How many vegetables did I have today? Sometimes it's better to have simpler records and just keep a tally of how many vegetables you ate. If you're really busy, you got a lot going on in your life, I don't want you to stop keeping records altogether. Try doing them in a more simple way for a little while if that's easier for you to do. By contrast, if you're really confused and you're not sure why you're not losing weight like you want to, maybe you want to try putting more detail into your records. You want to write down the times that you eat. You want to put more portion size information in there. You might like putting a calorie count in there. It's not something that we typically recommend, but you can certainly think about adding more detail to your records. One of the things that I kept track of was my sleep and my general physical well-being. At the end of the day, I would say, I've had a lot of headaches today, or I was really gassy today, or I felt icky overall, I was in a bad mood today. And by adding that into my records over time, I started to see how certain foods affected the way that I felt. And I started to see, if I eat too late at night, then it has an effect on my sleep quality. Or if I have too big of a meal, then I kind of want to sit down for a little bit and I'm unmotivated and I want to take a nap. So I found certain things work a little bit better for me by keeping track of my physical status. You may also keep track of where you are or who you're with. Some of those details do affect the choices that you make. I make worse choices when I'm by myself than when I'm with a client. And I make really bad choices when I'm with somebody else who is committed to making bad choices in general. Often some of my high school friends can get me in trouble, or with my wife, it's always a mixed bag. Sometimes she's helpful in getting me on track, but if we fall into the wrong pattern, then we become partners in crime, and she says, I'll eat this chocolate if you eat that chocolate, and then we give ourselves permission together to make poor choices. Some of that stuff can be helpful to have in your records. Hopefully that illustrates it for you, but I won't drive it too much more than that. Just think about putting more detail into your records. We'll talk about this kind of stuff on the live stream if you want more specific examples, and we'll probably put out some more videos in the future where we dig more into that kind of detail. Finally, for the support, variety is who you get your support from. Again, recall, support is about having a place to get accountability, having a place to ask questions, having a place to get motivation, having a place to get emotional support. If you feel like, this is getting too hard and I gotta quit, and you need someone to pick you up and put you back on track. Where do you go to talk to other people about what you're going through? Early on, a lot of people like to set up plans where they have a very minimal support. Well, I'll go online and I'll look for recipes if I need them, or I'll call my doctor if I feel like there's an issue, but there isn't necessarily something that's consistent or static in there or very detailed. I strongly recommend, if you are not getting the results that you want, if you're not happy with your results, think about your support first. Because if you have the right support, they can help you figure out how to do everything else and avoid making mistakes. Just a place to ask questions. Say, all right, here's what I'm trying to do. What can I do better? Here's what I'm having trouble with. What sort of tips can you give? What advice can you give? Recall from the previous video that there's no real limit to this. Any people you have in your life can be helpful, but usually people are helpful situationally. My mom might be really good at helping me with recipes. She might not be great for giving me exercise ideas. My doctor might be really good at talking to me about the nutrition side of things, but maybe not so great at the record keeping side of things. Maybe he's not so great at giving me motivation or encouragement, but he's always honest with me about what potential downsides there will be if I don't do what I'm supposed to do. You may have a coach that is directly giving you advice. That can be very helpful to have someone who's giving you specific one-on-one personalized attention, and you're not just getting generic advice. Now you're getting some focus directly onto you. You may have a nutritionist. You may have a specifically a physical trainer, personal trainer. Those could be super helpful. Just bear in mind, the more that they're focused on you, the more helpful the advice is going to be. And whoever you're talking to, you want to make sure that the advice they're giving you is good advice. So you need to have faith that they are knowledgeable in helping people lose weight in general. But I also want to emphasize here that there are online resources and YouTube videos and forums and places that you can go to talk more generically. It doesn't have to be hyper-focused, hyper-personalized all the time. And again, depending on what challenge you're going through and why you're unhappy with your results, there is no right answer. Sometimes it's better to have an anonymous person online that you're talking to where you don't feel any judgment. And sometimes it's better to have someone who's very close to you who will give it to you straight and knows exactly what's going on in your life. And it really depends on where you are emotionally and physically and psychologically and what specific challenges you have. If you're just looking for a recipe for broccoli, you don't need a lot of specific one-on-one personalized attention for that. You can just start looking for recipes for broccoli. If you specifically have an issue with part of your mobility or part of your health or nutrition, then you really want something hyper-personalized. You want a doctor who knows what you're actually going through, or a personal trainer who can see exactly what your physical condition is. So just think about that. How do you do each of these things? You may not have to change your plan when you do that. If you're supposed to be having 5 fruits and vegetables a day, just by changing which fruits and vegetables you eat, maybe 5 is still the right number. You don't have to change the plan, but just think about the ones that you're doing. The most classic example of that, by the way, is doing more vegetables and less fruits. Vegetables tend to be a little bit lower on that calorie guide. So again, just still the same number, but making a change, you might see an improvement. Still the same type of physical activity goal. I'm still trying to do 30 minutes a day, for example, but I'm going to try doing a different type of activity. Just doing that, you might see a change. All right, that's it. That's option number 1, variety. Number 2, higher numbers. Okay, push these plans so that you're doing more. Let's talk about that. This one's pretty obvious. It's just increase these goals. So for fruits and vegetables, if I started out and I said I'm going to be kind of conservative, I'm just going to promise I'll eat 1 vegetable a day. Let's get started with that and see how it goes. If I'm being honest with you guys, that's probably not going to be enough. You're going to need more fruits and vegetables than 1 a day. So the next step in the process, if you're not getting the results you want, is to increase it. Let's try doing 2 a day. Let's try doing 5 a day. There are clients that I have who are regularly having 10 a day. I think the most I've ever seen in a day is maybe 15 to 20. I don't think I ever saw somebody eat more than 20 cups of fruits and vegetables in a day, but I could definitely see it being a possibility. But there's no upper limit to this number. Now you might think, well, I'm eating more food now. I'm going to eat more fruits and vegetables. That means I'm going to be eating more calories. But you have to remember what our goal actually is, and that is to move further down the chart. I'm going to zoom out so this is clear. Fruits and vegetables are low on the chart. Almost always, if you're eating a fruit or a vegetable here, you are replacing something else, and whatever that something was probably worse. If I'm having a vegetable and I'm not having French fries, you can't see it because I blocked it with my big head. French fries is right here. If I'm having vegetables instead of French fries, that's a good choice. If I have 10 let's say 10 cups of broccoli, that is 400 calories, give or take, probably less. Depends on how it's cooked. If I have one small French fry order from McDonald's, it's going to be about the same amount of calories. So even if I have to eat 5 cups of broccoli in order to stay away from those fries, it's a good choice. Even if I have to have 5 apples in order to stay away from those fries, it's a good choice. It's super, super obvious when you start looking at these high calorie things. If you like for side dishes, macaroni and cheese, which is going to be over here in the red background. I think it's a little bit higher up. Nope, it's right here. Macaroni and cheese. If you like for your side dishes to have macaroni and cheese, pushing more vegetables in is going to push that macaroni and cheese out. And if you have to eat 10 cups of vegetables to avoid 1 cup of macaroni and cheese, it's usually worth it. And 10 cups of vegetables is more than you'll ever need. The thing that I'll stress here is that you are going to have to think about how you do them. If you want to have more vegetables and your goal is to get rid of your mac and cheese, you're going to have to make those vegetables taste good, at least good enough that you're willing to give up the mac and cheese for them. So you're also going to have to think about variety probably here too. But you're increasing the overall number. This is really important for people who like big meals. This is really important for people who have been cheating and eating things they're not supposed to. And this is really important for people who snack throughout the day. You're going to need just higher numbers because you need more food in order to get through. There will be other situations where you might want to have higher numbers too, but those are really kind of the core. Now, I also want to say that higher numbers is going to address the portion size problem, which we talked about just a little while ago. If I'm trying to have less pasta, I'm going to put more broccoli with that pasta, or more zucchini with that pasta, or more corn with that pasta. By pushing higher numbers of vegetables, I will eat less pasta. And that's how we're going to save our calories. The camera's mirrored on my side, so to move down the chart that way, that's how we're going to do it. We're going to push these fruits and vegetables to replace the other stuff. If I'm trying to have less chicken, I'm going to put mushrooms in with my chicken when I cook it, and I will be happier to have a smaller portion size. I'm not just going to cut the piece of chicken in half and pretend like nothing has changed. I'm going to add more numbers. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense, but it's really interesting once you start getting it into practice. Back to where we were. Higher numbers for meal replacements. Same way, same idea. I'm going to try having more meal replacements. I was doing an entree every day for lunch. That was a simple choice. I didn't have to worry about my lunch. I know that that's taken care of. I'm still not seeing the results I want. So maybe what I'll do is I will increase the amount of entrees I'm doing. I might try doing an entree for dinner too. Or I might try having 2 entrees for lunch. That way I'm extra full, and when I get home for dinner, I end up making better choices. It's all about the ripple, how it affects everything else. Maybe I've been using meal replacement entrees because those were easy for me, but I should try using a meal replacement shake. And I'll try doing that for breakfast, and it'll help me push out some high calorie foods I've been having for breakfast. Or I'll try having it in the middle of the day, and it'll help me with my snacking. Maybe I should be having a meal replacement bar, because those will help fill my sweet tooth and keep me from getting into desserts and candies and other things. A higher number of meal replacements means less choices I have to make throughout the day and less opportunity for mistakes. Physical activity, same thing, higher number. Let me burn more calories. Let me do more minutes. The more activity I'm doing, the more weight loss I'm going to see. Now, there's a balance with all of these things, and it's especially obvious with physical activity. If you try to do too much activity, it will become a pain in the butt, and it'll feel like a job and a chore, and it'll be annoying. You will also risk injuring yourself, and then you're going to be on the sideline doing no activity for a little while. So you don't want to force it too hard, but you want to work to increase that as much as you can over time. But that's absolutely something that you can do. And for this goal, the idea of doing higher numbers, you don't necessarily have to also include variety. Maybe the physical activity that you do is walking. You're just going to start doing more walking. I've been walking for 10 minutes a day. I'm going to walk for 15 minutes a day. Even a slight increase is going to see an improvement. Okay, for goals, higher numbers really is going to tie in with what we already said for variety. I could set more goals. I could set bigger goals. Okay, in addition to wanting to lose weight, I also want to get into a smaller clothing size. I also want to be able to bench press 200 pounds. Right? You can set more goals, and you can also do your tracking more often. Twice a week, 3 times a week. See if that makes any sort of difference for you. Again, there are some cases where that's what you need. There are other cases where it's counterproductive, and that's where some experimentation is going to be. Then you have record keeping. More record keeping. Usually the way that I think higher numbers for record keeping goes is more detail, which again comes along line with variety, putting more just into your records. But I also think checking your records more often is a good example of doing more record keeping. For example, a lot of the folks that I start coaching when they first begin do their records at the end of the day, and they sit down and they write down everything they ate that day. Sometimes it's helpful to stop every time you eat and write it down. Sometimes it's helpful to stop twice a day. Once at lunch, write down everything you ate so far. At the end of the day, write down everything. There's a lot of options for how you want to choose to approach that, but it is something that can be helpful. By doing that more often, you pay more attention, you get more accountability, and you're more likely to catch your mistakes. Finally, for support, getting more support, that's having more sources. So not just different sources, trying to get some advice from your, like, for variety's sake, you could choose. Do I want to talk to my mom or do I want to talk to my doctor? And I'll do that once a week. When we talk about doing more, we get to the point where maybe I should be doing both. Maybe I should be checking online once a week for recipes, and I should be visiting with my coach, and I should be talking with my doctor once every 2 months. Having more support very rarely hurts. It means more accountability, it means more ideas, more recipes, more motivation. Again, always there's an upper limit. If you go too far and you stretch it too hard, then you're going to feel like it's becoming a full-time job. It's too aggressive. So if you're at all concerned, be willing to build yourself up slowly. Start small, work faster if you need to. All right, what's the next one? Volume. All right, volume is probably one of the most fun ones to talk about, and that is making choices that have a bigger benefit for less of an investment, less result. When you're talking about food, volume is what are the foods that I can eat for the most amount of food. So I get a big plate, a big bowl, a big meal, or a lot to eat during the day, but for the least amount of calories. That's the balance. Because theoretically, you can eat as much as you want of anything you want, but you also want it to have a very small impact on the scale. Okay, so volume explicitly is moving down the chart, moving further down the guide. So we'll bring up the guide one more time. There are circumstances, let me zoom in a little bit. There are circumstances where what you need is to be eating a lot of food, but you're not necessarily doing that because you're hungry. These are the places where volume becomes the most helpful. All right, let me run down a couple of them. If you are a boredom snacker, you're not really hungry, you're not really paying attention at all, you just like to eat while you watch TV. For me, it's a social like compensation. If I'm in a weird, awkward party and I don't have anyone to talk to, it's easy for me to cycle back to the buffet table. I'm not really hungry, I'm just looking to fill that empty space. For some people, it is emotional eating. Maybe you're dealing with comfort foods and bad news and how you want to adapt to those things, or stress eating. Same thing, I'm not hungry, I'm just trying to fill it and keep my hands busy. If you are at a place where other people are eating, which does come back to what we talked about a second ago, but if you're at a restaurant, for example, and you finish your meal very quickly, but everybody else is still sitting there eating, I'm not necessarily hungry, but I want something to do so that I'm not sitting there looking weird. Okay, there are a lot of cases where you're not looking for food, but you're using the food in that way. Volume is very helpful for that. The biggest one, which I have not mentioned yet, is just pure temptation. If I see chocolate cake, I'm not hungry, but that chocolate cake looks good. What I need in that moment is something that's going to keep my hands and my mouth busy so that I'm not getting into any trouble. In those circumstances, I'm looking for things that are higher in volume. Okay? And in general, maybe you're not facing any of those challenges, but you're not losing weight. What you're looking for is something that is higher in volume. I want to eat the same amount of food, but I want a better weight loss. Well, that means the foods that I eat need to be better foods, lower in calories, further down on this chart. So it's exactly what we talked about earlier, switching from chicken, doing more seafood. Finding ways to move further down this chart. Within your fruits and vegetables, you can do this. Instead of bananas, I can start doing strawberries. Instead of strawberries, I can start doing more melon. You can compare fruits side by side, vegetables side by side. You can look for ways to increase your volume, but I would be very careful when you're doing that and you're already in this low calorie section. Okay, trying to switch from a potato to another vegetable, it'll have a small impact, but what makes the biggest impact is moving from one of these other two categories. If I can get out of this red background, say for example that I'm having soda. If I can get out of this red background and start drinking water instead, or diet soda instead, or tea instead, or coffee instead, or flavored water instead, I'm making a huge shift. I'm getting all the way out of the red background into the white background. You're making substantial changes at that point. That is where you're going to see the greatest potential to start getting a better weight loss, a faster weight loss, or to stop yourself from gaining. When you can move out of this territory and get something that is lower in calories, but the same amount of food, that's where you're going to see the greatest volume benefits. Okay, sauces and spices are where you're going to think about this the most. I promise you, most likely, if you're thinking about making a change, you're not eating a bunch of cheeseburgers. You shouldn't be eating any cheeseburgers. So you're not going to be like, oh, well, let me replace my cheeseburgers with turkey burgers, because you're already starting to do that. Where you're going to have to make the most changes are for your liquids. You may be drinking something with sugar or something with cream or alcohol or something like that, and you can replace that with something else. And you may be using the wrong sauces and spices. It's really easy to get the wrong salad dressing or the wrong mayonnaise, or to use a little bit of olive oil when you're cooking your vegetables, and to not realize how big of an impact that is happening. So this is the place where you're going to look for volume more than anywhere else, is with your sauces and spices. I want a salad dressing that is so low in calories, if I want to, I can pour the whole bottle on and I won't get in trouble. I want that volume. I want to be able to use it as much as I need to use it. That's volume. Anything that you can do that moves you further down this chart, that way. Anything you do that allows you to move further down the chart that way will give you a better result on the scale. And that's what increasing volume is. I want something bigger. One of the examples that I like to share here, although there are lots of ways to do this, one of the ways that I like to do this is to find something from this 1, 2, and 3 range that bulks up something from one of the other ranges. So for example, sometimes I will cook turkey sausage or veggie sausage, and then I'll take egg whites and I'll toss a bunch of egg whites into the pan with the turkey sausage. So it's, 75% egg white, 25% turkey sausage, but the egg white adds all this volume to the meal. And the flavor is coming from the higher calorie food, but the volume is coming from over here. Same thing with seafood. I mentioned earlier, I do some things with chicken, and then I throw shrimp or crab meat, and it gives volume to what I'm doing. So I don't feel like I'm eating a smaller meal. Looking for those types of strategies will result in a better weight loss because I'm eating less chicken. I'm doing less turkey sausage. I'm bringing more of these things in. This is one of the reasons why I think yogurt is so important. I have a lot of clients who fight me on yogurt, don't necessarily know what to do with yogurt, think they don't like yogurt at all. But there are a lot of cool recipes where you use yogurt as a cream sauce or as a soup base or as a dip that allows you to get a lot of dip or a lot of sauce for very few calories. And it makes all these other things just a little bit more interesting, and it makes it a lot easier to do those things and have them be healthy. So yogurt's very good for that. Soup is probably my secret. Don't tell anybody. I'm sharing it with you, but nobody else unless they watch this video. Soup is something that you can throw in. Just broth, chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth. I have a ham broth that I've been liking recently. If you throw that into a pot, you can put your vegetables in that pot, and it takes up so much more, and you don't have to use as many vegetables. You can put chicken in that pot, you don't have to use as much chicken. You can put pasta in that pot, you don't have to use as much pasta, because you're getting the bulk coming from these things. And of course, fruits and vegetables are the best answer to this particular question. If I have a bowl of pasta, I can put a bunch of, let's pick a new one. How about tomato in that bowl? I can put a bunch of cucumber in that bowl, and I can make a pasta salad where the majority of it is vegetables. The volume is coming from this lower calorie food. This, of all the strategies, I think is the most important to understand, because there's a lot of impact that this can have. Although these are really the 5 that you should be doing all the time. All right, what's the next one? Oh, we can keep going. For physical activity, volume is about burning more calories with less time. Okay, so for the food, it's eating more food with less calories. For physical activity, it's burning more calories, right? Better weight loss, but not spending the same amount of time. The way that you do that is with intensity. If I work a little bit harder or push a little bit faster, then I breathe a little bit more, I move a little bit more, I'm going to get a little bit more calorie burn. If I run for 10 minutes and I walk for 10 minutes, it's still the same 10 minutes, but when I'm running, I'm burning some extra calories. One of my favorite strategies in here is to do partial intensity increases. You'll see it as interval training a lot, but it's if I walk for a minute, then I jog for a minute, then I walk for a minute, right? That means at the end of, a half an hour, half of the time I was walking and half of the time I was jogging. So overall, you get a little bit more calorie burn without having to necessarily jog the entire time or even half of the time straight in a row. You're doing it interspersed throughout everything out. That's one of the coolest ways of increasing your intensity. There are a lot of reasons why you don't want to put a lot of time into your activity. Maybe I'm on vacation and I just want to knock my activity out so I can relax and not have to worry about it. Maybe it's a holiday and I want to get my physical activity done so I can spend time with my family. Maybe it's just every day and I'm busy and I don't have a lot of time to put towards physical activity. This is a good reason to look for ways to increase your intensity. Now, I will add in here, in addition to just moving faster, increasing the resistance is a way of increasing your intensity. So if you find a way to carry weights or to make the activity a little bit harder, you will also see a better calorie burn. A good example of that is walking through the sand or riding your bike uphill, where you get this extra bit of resistance. If you have a machine, like an exercise bike or a treadmill or something, it's easy to control that. Increase the intensity, the incline, the resistance, put more weights onto the weights that you're lifting. That will create a higher calorie burn without having to necessarily move faster. You're just working a little bit harder. So keep that in mind. Then for goals and tracking, the idea of volume is that you're getting the most amount of value for the least amount of input. I like to think of this as I'm very lazy. So if I want to get the most use out of everything that I'm using, how can I be economical with that? For the goals and tracking, the question here is, what is the goal that will make the biggest impact? and how do you track that so that it makes the biggest impact. And that's a little bit harder to explain than the physical activity in the fruits and vegetables because it's a little bit more personal. You're thinking about what's going to give you the most amount of accountability and what's going to give you the most amount of motivation and what is the most likely to keep you on track working towards your goal. But in this particular area, we're thinking about times where you would have to simplify as well. If I go into some kind of situation and I don't have an easy way of measuring my progress, what can I do to have something that is in place that is making some kind of impact instead of just having nothing at all? And I know that this is very confusing, but it's hard to see until you do it in practice. But let me try and give you a couple of examples. So what will do the most amount of impact as far as your goals and your tracking? Well, for that, you can think about emotionally what gives you the most amount of impact. What really is going to hold you accountable? I find that a lot of times talking to my clients about the other people in their life has the biggest amount of impact. I maybe have my own goals, but I don't care so much about those sometimes. I really do care about my friends and my family. I want to be a better wife or better husband or a better father, better brother, sister. I want to be better at my job. How does my weight affect these other areas? That tends to give the most amount of accountability, I find sometimes. It makes me want to work harder, makes me want to create better results, makes me want to not cheat so much. Okay, so that's volume in terms of the goal that you set. When we talk about volume in terms of tracking your goal, what we're actually talking about is what is the easiest way of doing it. So this is going to come blended in with record keeping, but it's going to be about not spending a lot of time, not having to put a lot of mental energy into it, making it as simple as possible to get my accountability and stay on track. The places, again, I'll just repeat this, the places where this is going to end up being the most important are when you don't have a lot of time or you don't have a lot of motivation. If I have a really stressful work week, I want the best bang for my buck. I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to think about this. I'm focusing on work this week. I don't have a lot of time. Or if you're dealing with something emotionally, you're going through a breakup, I don't want to think about being on a diet. I'm still dealing with all this emotional pain. I want something that's as simple as possible, as straightforward, that's going to keep me on track. One of the most common issues that you will face is that you're not following your plan. And volume is good for making your plan better, but volume is really good at helping you do your plan when you don't want to. I would say that's probably where the volume shines the most. I'm on vacation. I don't want to keep really detailed records. I don't want to weigh myself every day. What's going to get the highest amount of impact? If you are curious on this one, the answer is weighing yourself and doing it once a week. At the bare minimum, if you do nothing else, I would keep those two in place. Because those are things that you can see immediately if you need to make changes. And once a week allows you to see it often enough that it doesn't become too annoying, like weighing yourself every day, but not too far apart where if you only weigh yourself once a month, you don't get time to see what's going wrong before you're way off track and you need to recorrect in a big way. So I would say those are the best ways of getting the volume out of your goals and your tracking. Record keeping falls along the same lines. You are thinking about what is the most helpful record keeping that will give you the best information that you can use. If you need to simplify, ways that you can simplify and do it easier with less time, less work. Okay, so in that case, you might think about whether it's easier to put your records in your phone or it's easier to put your records on paper. It's important to mention this because if you talk about your everyday, you're going to have one answer. But when you talk about a challenge, because your plan isn't working or because you're going through something and you need to adjust your plan, the answer might be different. Specifically for vacation, you might like keeping your records on paper, even though normally you keep them in your phone. Why? I don't know. Maybe you're on vacation somewhere where there's a lot of water and you're on the beach and you don't want your phone to get wet or dirty. You want to bring it out a lot. You want to leave your phone back at the hotel room so it can't get in any trouble. Maybe specifically while you're going through a breakup, you want to put your records in your phone. Why? Because it's easy, it's fast, it's digital, it's hitting a couple of buttons, and it's saved forever. You're less likely to lose it. You might not have to think about it as much. It just depends on the situation. But that's why this one gets a little bit tricky sometimes. The question, though, at its core that you're asking is, what is going to give me the most amount of value here? If I put more detail, or if I do it in a different way or in a different place, will I get a better result? It's a question to ask, it's situational, and it's different for each person. Finally, you get support. And again, we're asking the same question. If I have to get the most amount of support for the least amount of effort, the least amount of input, for the least amount of money, where do I get that? And I would guess that the answer there starts with whatever support you can get for free. That could be online support, that could be forums, that could be social media, that could be friends and family. That's the bare minimum support that I think you should be able to rely on. If you have a challenge, you should have friends that you can talk to about how you want to solve that challenge. That one I mentioned specifically because a lot of times I'll work with a client and they don't tell their friends or family they're even trying to lose weight. So they don't even have that bare minimum level of support if they're facing a temptation or if they're getting into a challenging situation. That person doesn't even know what you're trying to do. There's no way they're going to be able to help you. Whereas if you just talk to them, you have way more opportunity to get a better result. The classic example of that is holidays. If I go over to somebody's house for Christmas and I don't tell them what's going on and I just try to make good choices while I'm there, maybe I do okay, maybe I don't. But if I called them the week ahead of time and said, hey, what are you cooking? Then I could, in my own mind, come up with a better plan for how I want to handle it. And if I called them ahead of time and I said, hey, can you make those green beans without any butter? Could you make those potatoes without any cheese? Or set aside a little bit for me so that I can have them? Then now I know I've got something I can rely on while I'm over there. That, I say, is the bare minimum amount of support. The support that you can get from the people in your own life. But again, from there you sort of build up. What support is going to be the most helpful for the least amount of effort or the least amount of time? I do think that the very best support you're ever going to get is personalized support. Someone who actually knows what you're trying to do and what you like and what you dislike and what you're going through in terms of your diet, and also just in terms of you as a human being, what's going on in your life. So if you are really struggling with your results and you're not seeing what you want, the best support you're going to get is to have an actual coach who's going to walk you through it. So I'll share that with you. But that's volume. The most amount of effort for the least amount of work. The most amount of food for the least amount of calories. The most amount of physical activity for the least amount of time. Making it easier. Then you get to timing. Timing is a fun one to experiment with. So you can use timing to impact your weight loss. Oh, this is a really hard one to explain without using an actual example. Well, we'll put it this way. If I go into a restaurant and, they have whatever they have. It's a cheeseburger restaurant. The last time I ate usually matters. If I ate 4 hours ago, by the time I get into that restaurant, I'm going to be more hungry and I'm going to be less likely to be able to turn down temptations. If I ate 2 hours ago, that might be a little bit better. I'll be thinking a little bit more clearly when I go in there. If I ate 2 minutes before I walk into the restaurant, then I'm going to be full. I'm not going to be looking for anything while I'm there. There's a lot of cases where the times that you eat or the times you do these 6 different necessities, the time you follow these 6 rules, it matters. It makes an impact. And again, the answers differ. Sometimes you want to eat 15 minutes before you go to a restaurant. Sometimes you should eat 2 minutes before you go into the restaurant. Sometimes you should eat an hour before you go into the restaurant. Sometimes you should do both. Eat an hour and then eat again 15 minutes before you go into the restaurant. This is where it gets fun. We started the whole video by saying that. This is where it gets fun. This is where I don't have the answer for you right away. You'll have to experiment with it. The one thing that I can say is if you eat more fruits and vegetables, you will not have enough room in your stomach to eat something else. So if you're not sure, eat as often as you can. Keep yourself busy with foods that you know are good for you so that you don't get into trouble. But when you start talking about timing, you're going to think about when you eat. Okay, if I have breakfast, is my breakfast at 8 in the morning? Is it at 8:30? Is it at 11 o'clock? What sort of impact does it make? It may not make any impact at all for you, or it may make an impact on some days and not make an impact on other days. But that's something that you should consider. When do I eat breakfast? When do I eat lunch? When is the last time I eat late at night? What snacks do I have throughout the day? When do I incorporate the foods that I'm using? Particularly for these, when am I going to have my fruits and vegetables? If I'm eating all my fruits and vegetables in the morning and I'm not losing weight, I might want to think about pushing fruits and vegetables later on in the day. Specifically, I would try and have fruits and vegetables with my meals because you're probably struggling with portion size. If you're not eating any fruits and vegetables for dinner, start putting some fruits and vegetables with dinner. Or maybe you're always having your fruits and vegetables as snacks separately. Or you're always having your fruits and vegetables with your meals, but you're never doing the opposite. Maybe you should start experimenting doing your fruits and vegetables at different times. Maybe you always have fruits for breakfast, you never have vegetables for breakfast. So it's when do you have the stuff, and then it's also how often. You may have heard the strategy, the tip in the past, to eat smaller meals more frequently. That's not a rule, but you might find it helpful. If I ate more often, if I ate a snack in between lunch and dinner, would that be helpful for me? We've been doing some meal plans recently on the live stream, and there's a scenario that keeps coming up where you're driving. I'm going somewhere. Maybe I want to eat something before I go for this drive, or maybe I want to eat something while I'm on the drive. Maybe it's apple slices or something, or grapes, something I can eat with my hand. And the idea is that if I can eat that while I'm driving, then I'm not going to worry so much about fast food or some of those temptations, or getting hungry before I get home and having to pull over and get something else. So timing can play a big role. If you're going to think about timing, you should think about timing in the context of the calorie guide. I'll bring it up one more time. Maybe it'll make more sense when I put a specific example to it, but the goal is that when I eat my fruits and vegetables will affect my ability to move further down. Dang it, I did it again. It will affect my ability to move further down the chart. Okay, so as an example, cheeseburgers are over here. If I had a vegetable an hour before I went to the restaurant, would it be easier for me to order a turkey burger instead of a cheeseburger? Would it be easier for me to order a chicken sandwich instead of a cheeseburger? If I ate my fruits and vegetables at different times, would it be easier to move further down this guide? If I decided to have vegetables with breakfast, would it be easier for me to not use as much turkey sausage, or for me to give up my bacon? If I picked the right other choices, would it create a better result for me here? If I had seafood for dinner, would I be less likely to have macaroni and cheese for dinner? Right? Every choice that you make has some effect on the other choices you make. So when you're thinking about timing, that's the way that it becomes helpful. If I did something at a different time, would I have more willpower? Would I be less hungry? Would I be able to keep my hands busy so I didn't get into trouble? Would I be able to do something that made it easier for me to make better choices later on? That's usually where timing becomes helpful. You can also think about timing in terms of other reasons why you're upset. If you're hungry all the time, or if you're tired all the time, or if your energy is low, or you're in a bad mood, when you eat might affect those things. So that would be something to think about. All right, looking at what we've got set up here, that addresses our fruits and vegetables. It also addresses our meal replacements. When do I have meal replacements? One of the most common examples of this is if you're only going to have one entree. Do I have my entree for lunch, or do I have my entree for dinner? Typically, the dinner one makes a bigger difference. If I have an entree for dinner, that means that I'm going to plan my own lunch, pack my own lunch. Well, most people find it easier to make a healthier lunch than they do to make a healthy dinner. There's a lot more temptations, a lot more hunger, it takes a lot more time. So if I'm only going to have one, maybe that's where I should put it. With the shakes, it's normally consideration of timing. Probably the biggest place where we think about that is with snacks. Should I have a meal replacement shake as a snack? And will it affect my other meals today? Will it affect my temptations? It's really interesting stuff to start digging deeper into that. All right, physical activity, timing for physical activity. Do I do my walk in the morning? Do I do it on my lunch break? Do I do it at the end of the day? What are the benefits? I'm going to tell you the secret is that the answer is all three, but it depends on the day. Some days I'm not going to be able to do activity first thing in the morning. So I'm going to have to be able to do it at work that day. Or I'm going to have to be able to do it in the evening. Sometimes I get home and I'm tired and I don't want to go to the gym at night. So I'm going to have to find some ways to do activity early on in the day. You need the flexibility. But because you're talking about different times, you're also talking about different places, different people. Your mood is going to be different. Your energy is going to be different. You're going to have to think about doing different activities as well. If I have to do my activity in the morning, maybe I'm more likely to take a class because I need a class to wake me up and keep me motivated. I can't walk on the treadmill first thing in the morning. If you're going to do your activity in the evening, maybe you want to do something at home. That way you're not out too late. Maybe you don't feel so safe being out on the streets at night or going to the gym by yourself at night. Maybe you want some activities you can do at home. Those are things that you have to think about. One that I have personally is I don't like to do weightlifting in the evening because I get like really hyped up and energized when I do weightlifting and I can't go to sleep. So I like to do my weightlifting if I'm going to do it early in the day, and I like to get it out of the way, and then I like to have that buzz, that energy for the rest of the day. So when do you do it? And again, just like with the food, how often do you do it? How do you break it down? Do you do physical activity all at once, 30 minutes, all in one shot? Or is it better for you to do 2 15 minutes? Or is it better to do 3 10-minute walks and add them all together? For me, and I promise you it'll be the case for you as well, it will be better on most days to break it up. You're not going to be able to do a lot of activity all at once very often. You can try and force it for a little while, but eventually you're going to want to do 5 minutes here and 2 minutes there and 10 minutes here, and then maybe get one big 20-minute, 30-minute, maybe an hour. But most of it then is spread throughout the day in these other small pieces. I'll walk here, take the stairs instead of the elevator, finding those kinds of opportunities. Lots of options for how you break up your physical activity. For your goals and tracking and your record keeping, you're along the same lines. I did touch on this already. It's when you keep your records. Do you write down what you eat as soon as you eat it? Do you write it down at the end of the day and try and remember everything? Or do you plan things out? Maybe a week before Thanksgiving happens, you sit down and you write out your whole plan for what you want to eat that day. Maybe you get a better result when you write your records down in advance. A lot of my clients end up doing their records every day, either first thing in the morning or they do it the night before. They try and plan out what the day is going to look like. And they don't always follow it 100% the way they plan it out, but when they have it down on paper early, it helps them wrap their head around how they want to get through the day. It helps them remember different challenges that they might have forgotten about, and it helps them think about any last minute changes that they need to make in order to accommodate what's going on that day. So for your record keeping, timing is maybe a smaller consideration, but you will notice that when you keep your records, it will affect your motivation, it will affect your accountability. The reason why that's important if you're not losing weight is because if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's a lot harder to see the results that you're supposed to be seeing. So I just want to remind you guys, everything we're doing is about moving further down that chart. If that's the goal, to move further down that chart, having better records, putting more accountability, figuring out how you're going to be more likely to do it will play a role there. Finally, support. When do you get your support? When do I talk to somebody about new recipes? Do I wait until I get bored? Or do I try and talk about new recipes on a regular basis so that I never do get bored in the first place? When do you talk to your doctor? Once a month? Once every 6 months? When do you talk to your personal trainer? When do you talk to your online forum? When do you do it? Again, we're talking about over time, how often do I do it? But we're also talking about within the structure of your week and within the structure of your day. Should I wait till the weekends when I have a little bit more free time to call up my friend and get advice? You may not have a lot of success if you're trying to squeeze that in the middle of a busy week. And the person that you're trying to talk to may also not be able to talk to you in the middle of a busy week. So it might be a good idea to set aside that time. Maybe weekends are better than weekdays. Conversely, or in addition, you may also want to think about when during the day. If I go to some of the online forums that I go to, first thing in the morning, they don't often usually have very good advice. I like to wait till the end of the day, and then I can see everything that was posted, and I can see all the conversations that they had, and if there were any challenges, they've sort of already worked through all the questions that I would have. It's better for me to wait a little bit longer before going to the online forums. I wait till the end of the day, or I also might wait till the end of a month to check a website that I go to often. That way, at the end of a month, I can see all the new stuff they added at once. Okay? Think about that. And again, think about it in context of moving further down that meal replacement guide, or that moving further down that calorie guide. Think about it from that context. When I get my support, will it affect my ability to move further down that guide? If I don't get the most out of what I'm trying to get here, then I will not make the right decisions in regards to my diet or my physical activity. That's what we're thinking about every single time. There's one more up here that we need to address, and I would say this is the most versatile. This is where you have the most amount of choices, and I would say it's the most fun, and I would also say it is the most powerful. It's the single strongest thing you can do if you're not seeing the results that you want to see. And I know we've already gone through so much already in this video. That's a lot for me to say. I'm not going to say it's the most important. You have to do all of them. But this is the one where if you're not doing it, or let's put it this way, if you're like code red, I've been experimenting, I'm not seeing the results I want to see, I need to hit that emergency button and put the brakes on this, make it happen. This is the one that you're going for. This is also the one that you should be thinking about really, really early on. For most of the things, you can be pretty flexible. With these four, I suggest very often to my clients that you do pretty much what you were doing before you started trying to lose weight, especially in the early stages. You're supposed to be eating more vegetables, but as far as variety, you don't have to try a lot of new recipes in the first week. Try what you like, just start eating more of them, get used to doing it consistently. As far as higher numbers, if you start out a little bit more conservative, we can always work on increasing the numbers. As far as volume, do what you're used to doing. And then we always have time to try and make better choices and figure out how to tweak things as things go on. And as far as timing, if you don't normally eat breakfast, you shouldn't try and force yourself to eat breakfast now. Get started and sort of find your groove. Environmental control, you don't really want to wait too long to start doing this, because so much of your success is going to depend on your environmental control. So let's talk about it. Environmental control is exerting a pressure over your surroundings so that you can do what you need to do, and so that it's easier to make the choices that you need to make. And once again, if we're going to refer to the calorie guide, it's changing your surroundings so that it's easier to eat foods that are lower on the calorie guide, and so that it's easier to avoid temptations that are higher on the calorie guide. That's what environmental control is. It's setting up your surroundings. Now, what are your surroundings? Well, that's the places you go and the people that you hang out with and the environments that you go into on a regular basis. More than anything, this is thinking about the environments that you're sitting in. So let's give a couple of examples. The most common example of environmental control is not keeping temptations in your environments. So for example, if I know that I have trouble with Oreo cookies, I can try and eat more fruits and vegetables. I can try looking for different recipes to help me avoid Oreo cookies. I can think about options that will give me more volume so I have lots to eat so that I don't get into that. And I can think about timing. I'm going to eat certain foods right late at night before I go to bed so I don't get into those Oreo cookies, right? I could do all of those things. But what's the most powerful thing I could do? Don't keep Oreo cookies in my house. I know that that's important for me. You don't always have the ability to do this, but every time you can do it, all of the pressure lifts off. If you want to get in trouble and Oreo cookies aren't there, it's a lot harder to get in trouble. You have to go out of your house and out of your way to go and find an opportunity to do it. This absolutely starts at home. What are the things that tempt me? What are the things that encourage me to make poor choices? And how do I remove those from my environment? Take them out so they're not there. Again, sometimes this is easier than other times. If you live by yourself, this is super easy. If you live with other people, it starts to get harder. I want the junk away from me. I don't want to smell pizza. I don't want to look at pizza. And if I don't, then I don't worry about it. It doesn't really bother me so much. It bothers me most of all when I have to see it and I have to look at it. So you think about, before you even get started, what sort of temptations you don't want to have in your environment at home. You do the same thing at work. You do the same thing in your car. You do the same thing if you spend a lot of time at the gym, or you spend a lot of time at your friend's house, or you have a club that you're a part of. Wherever you go, where you spend a lot of time, are there things that you can remove from your environment so they don't give you as much trouble? If you can do it, do it. If other people are involved, ask them if you can do it. Get them on board. In most cases, people will try to support you where they can. It won't always be the case, but don't feel like it's a selfish thing or that you can't ask, that it's not your right to try and set up your environment the way you need to. Put that in place, and I promise you, you'll be surprised by how many people want to help you out with this part. Now, if you cannot remove these things entirely, well, then you can try and partially remove them or reduce the amount of temptation they provide. A classic example of this is to have a cabinet that your kids keep their junk food in. Now, you don't go in that cabinet, so you don't have to look at it, you don't have to see it. You have all your healthy stuff that's right in front of you. But the other stuff, even though it's not completely gone from the environment, it's a lot harder for it to bother you. One of my favorite tricks that I was taught by one of my classes, actually, was to get bowls and storage containers that were not see-through. All of my containers were clear, so if somebody had leftover pizza, I could see in the refrigerator there's a little bit of pizza, and I knew that I could get in trouble with it. As soon as it wasn't visible, even if it was still there, I didn't have to see it. I didn't have to think so hard. Okay, so first remove stuff. If you can't remove it, make it a little bit harder for it to bother you. Make it harder to see. Pull it further out of your field of view. Then see if you can avoid stuff altogether. There are some things like, for example, specific places that you might want to avoid early on. For a long time, I would not go to a buffet-style restaurant. I'd go to other restaurants with people. I didn't want to be somewhere that was all you can eat where I could serve myself. Or I know a lot of my clients don't like to go to the movies for a little while when they're first getting started because it's extra candies, popcorns, just temptations that they don't want to deal with right away. If I don't go, I don't have to look at it, I don't have to see it. I've even seen people who skipped certain holiday dinners. You know, I'm not going to go to Christmas dinner, I'll come over the next day and I'll see how you're doing and we'll exchange gifts and things like that. But I don't want to be there for dinner because that's an environment that's more tempting. It's an extreme choice, but if you do it, it's going to be really hard for you to end up cheating. And that's exactly what you're looking for when you start talking about environmental control. Just reducing your opportunity to do those things. There are other things that you can do to sort of shift the environment in different ways to remove temptations. For example, you might have a rule at your house that everybody can eat pizza, but they don't eat it when you're there. That also starts to talk about timing a little bit. You can eat pizza, but only on the weekends, because you know on Saturday I go over to my friend's house. You can eat pizza when I'm not here. Putting in some of those situational rules can be interesting. Definitely think about this at home. Definitely think about this at home. Definitely then think about it at work. What temptations can you remove? If you can't remove them, can you put in some extra barriers? Have things put in a certain place. If people keep candy on their desk, have them put it in a container where you can't see it, or have it stashed away when you're around. Think about where you have that control. And again, you have a lot more control than you think, and it never hurts to ask. There's a second part of environmental control, though, which is just as important, and that is additive environmental control. So far, we've been talking about taking stuff out of your environment. You also have to think about putting stuff into your environment. Mostly because we just discussed you can't take everything away. Some stuff is always going to be there to tempt you and to bother you. So for those circumstances, you should be thinking about what you can add into the environments where you spend time. And I'm gonna let you in on another secret here, guys. What are the things that you need to put into your environment? Go ahead, pause the video, think about that for just a second. And I'll give you a hint. There are 6 things that you can add into your environment. All right, that's long enough. These are the 6 things that you should be thinking about adding into your environment. So when it comes to environmental control, yes, you're going to think about the things you can take away. But if you're having trouble seeing results, and if you're having trouble sticking to your plan, then you should very strongly think about how you want to put these things into your environments, right? If I'm having trouble eating fruits and vegetables, or maybe I'm not having trouble eating fruits and vegetables, but I'm having trouble turning down potato chips. Okay, I can tell my kids, we're not buying any more potato chips, we're not keeping chips in the house. The other thing that I could do, though, is I could bring in more fruits and vegetables. Let me have a fruit bowl so they're right on the counter so I'm face to face with my fruits and vegetables all the time. Let me peel my oranges at the beginning of the week so I don't have to take that time. When I want an orange, I can grab it and it's ready to go. Let me wash my grapes and take them off the vine so they're ready to eat. Let me chop my melon so that the preparation is done. I have mentioned, and I always mention it when I do meal plans too, the stuff that I like the most tends to be frozen and canned as far as fruits and vegetables are concerned, because I can have those around all the time, and if I get a craving or if I decide that I want something, I got it. It's there and it's ready to go. Making these things more accessible is important, because if they're not there, you can't eat them, and if something else is there, you will find it. You need to put healthy stuff available. Now, this also applies to other foods on the calorie guide. We talk about seafood, we talk about popcorn and rice cakes. You should have those things around as well. If you want to be able to eat them, make sure that they're in your environment. but especially here, set your environment up so that you have access to fruits and vegetables. One of the biggest problems that I ever face with my own weight is that I get lazy and I don't grocery shop. So I get to the end of the week and I've got no fruits and vegetables left. It's so easy for me to make an excuse to eat something that I shouldn't have eaten because I'm all out of fruits and vegetables. I got nothing else to eat. So why not have a brownie? And I know that it's an entirely warped train of thought there, but it's really easy for me to convince myself. Have your fruits and vegetables. Figure out how you're going to get them in your environment. Again, think about every environment. Sometimes you need things that you can eat in your car. Sometimes you're going to go to restaurants. Sometimes you're going to go to work. You need fruits and vegetables available at work too. You might go over to somebody else's house. Maybe you're not planning on eating, but you should have access to these things just in case you do want them. You're going to go on vacation. Well, if you're going to be staying in a hotel while you're on vacation, maybe you pick up some groceries before you head over to the hotel. Find fruits and vegetables that you can keep in your room. All of this stuff is stuff that you can do, and it makes the entire process easier when you have access to it. Okay, so fruits and vegetables, fairly straightforward. Meal replacements, same thing. Figure out how to have access to these things. If you'd like to make a shake while you're at work, maybe you want to get a blender and keep it at work. Maybe you want to keep some extra shakes there. If you want to have salads while you're at work, maybe you want to keep a bottle of salad dressing in the refrigerator there. So anytime you order out and you want to get a salad, you know you have access to that. If you want to have meal replacements, maybe you have some entrees that you keep on hand. Maybe you have some frozen entrees that you keep in the freezer. Maybe you have the right vegetables that you know you need in order to pair those with the meals that you enjoy. I keep sometimes here in the office a bag of raw potatoes. I do microwave baked potatoes, and I like those with some of my entrees. If I don't have those potatoes, sometimes I won't eat the entree because I know the potato is one of the things that I enjoy doing with it. So instead of eating the entrees, I'll go next door and order something that I should not be ordering from the deli. That's exactly the kind of stuff that gets us in trouble. We are surrounded by bad choices all the time. We need the good stuff there too. Okay, so think about work. Think about your car. What do you keep there? Think about your purse or your coat. Do you keep anything in your pocket in case you need a snack? If you go into the movies, what do you carry into the movies with you? What do you eat before you go? That's timing. But is there anything that you actually take into that environment? Control your surroundings. Make it the way you want it to be. For physical activity, same thing. Can I control my environment to make it easier to do physical activity? Well, if I have a treadmill at home, it's easier to do walking. If I have the right clothes, like I take my gym clothes to work here, and if I want to go to the gym, I know I have the outfit that I need. I'm never going to be like, oh, I don't have my clothes. I'd love to go to the gym today, but I can't go. If I want to walk, I need to have comfortable shoes. I always wear comfortable shoes. I actually stopped wearing a suit to work specifically for that reason. I've always wanted to have comfortable shoes if I wanted to take a walk. So you set up that environment. If you want little weights, if you want a chin-up bar at work, if you want some kind of physical activity you can do in your hotel room, maybe you carry a workout DVD with you. Or maybe you have a tablet, because we're in a future generation now, so we're not doing workout DVDs. Maybe you just want to take a tablet that you have access to a streaming service where you have a workout tape there, or a workout video on your streaming service. Or maybe you want to have a Netflix account so that you can log into that on somebody else's TV if you're staying over at their house, and you could still get the physical activity that you need. Take the equipment that you need. Take the resources. I maybe don't like to walk if I don't have music to listen to. So I want to make sure everywhere I go I've got access to music. Those are the things that you should be thinking about. Same thing for record keeping. What tools can you put in place so that you are more likely to keep your records? Well, if you have to weigh yourself every week, maybe you want your scale to be in the kitchen, so it's right there in your face, and you don't forget to step on the scale one week because maybe it wasn't a great week. You see that scale, it's a reminder that you're supposed to be staying on track. Maybe for your records, you want to have maybe a dry erase board that you keep on your refrigerator, so if you eat something you can write it down and you won't forget it by the end of the day. Those are the things to consider. Can I set up my environment? Can I get the right tools? the right utensils to be able to do these things. One of the things that I use for record keeping, I'll share with you guys now, is an app. And the specific app I use at the time of making this video is MyFitnessPal. And at the time of making this video, MyFitnessPal has the option where you can scan the barcode on the food that you're eating, and it'll put it into your records. And I find that super convenient sometimes. If I'm looking for a fast way to keep records, I scan the barcode on my vegetable can, I'll scan the barcode on my bar, I'll scan the barcode on my meal replacement that I ate. It puts it in there. I don't have to type anything or do any more work than that. That is one of the things that I use to set up my environment to have access to easy record keeping. Think about if there's anything along those lines that you want to fool around with. But if it makes it easier to make the right choices, then it's a worthwhile pursuit. And then finally, support. Setting up your environment to get the right support. There's a lot of examples of how this might apply. I think the best example of this is when you get your support being in the right place. For example, I do phone support for some folks, and they'll call me and they're in their car and they're driving and they're on a headset. And they can't focus on the conversation. They don't have their records with them. They can't take notes. That's not a good environment to be trying to get support. If you try and get your support, but it's always, late at night and you're basically falling asleep, and again, you're not processing it, you're not actually getting anything from the support that you're getting, you should think about getting your support in a better environment. A lot of times, having a dedicated space can be very helpful. I'm going to go to the gym and meet with my trainer, and that's where I'll get my advice. I'm going to go to the office and talk to my nutritionist, and that's where we'll talk out my diet. That can make a big difference, but at the very least, it's setting up a room in your house where you can have a pad and your records and take notes, and actually make use of the advice you're getting. Even if you're just scrolling through, YouTube looking for recipes, set up your environment so that it's easy to get use out of that video. What I do, and you'll see this when I'm on doing my live streams, is I have a YouTube video, but I also have a notepad opened up or a word processor opened up at the same time. And if I hear an idea in the YouTube video, I'll type it into my word processor. And then later on, I'll remember, I'll have all these notes taken, and I'll remember to go back and check out that recipe or that idea, that link, whatever it is that I saved. Again, set up your environment. Have the right tools, have the right people, have the right surroundings. We didn't talk too much about people yet, but this is the truth too. If I go to the restaurant with my wife, I usually make good choices. If I have to order for myself, I might be more likely to get in trouble. If I go with my dad, I never make good choices because I want my dad to make good choices. So I always make good choices so he has that peer pressure there. If I see a client, I always make good choices. If I'm hanging out with a buddy from high school or a buddy from college, I might be more likely to get in trouble. Might be more likely to see alcohol, for example. There's a lot of cases where the specific people you're with will make a difference. And I do have rules. This person is not a person that I go to dinner with, and that person is not a person that I go to the movies with. And if I want to hang out with this person, I like to meet them for coffee, or I like to meet them for breakfast because it's easier for me to make good choices at breakfast. Those can be rules that you impose, and you have to do it in I know that you have to be careful about the way you say this. You have to do it in the right way. You're not going to alienate the people in your life. But you can be smart about the way you make these suggestions. And the truth is, if you have a really good reason for losing weight, then you have a really good reason to make these changes. If you are going to have a heart attack if you don't lose this weight, then it is worth skipping the movies for a little while so you can get things under control. If you know that there's one particular person in your life who is pulling you always to eat junk or to go out and drink, and it's keeping you from your goals, it's worth putting some barriers in place for that. I've had friendships which changed because I was trying to get healthier and make better choices. And I've had romantic relationships that I wasn't able to sustain because my goals changed and her goals didn't change. And that's okay. That's okay. At the end of the day, you have to decide what the value in what you're trying to pursue is. And it was never a personal thing when I made some of these decisions. It was, I want to spend more time outdoors, hiking and swimming and kayaking. And if you don't want to spend that time outdoors with me, that's okay. I'll find friends who do want to go out and do those things. So it's tricky. It's tricky when you talk about long established relationships, but that is also a part of controlling your environment. Who are you with, and what do you do with them, and where do you go, and how do you set up all your surroundings? That is, in essence, everything you need to know to adjust your plan. I know it's a little bit disorganized and a little bit messy, but that's kind of the way that it goes when you're adjusting your plans. Let me try and summarize it for you and bring it in tight, and then I'll take a look at a couple of examples of plans that we made and how you might go about approaching this. But it's very simple. It's just very hard as well. There's not a lot of things to do, but you have to figure out how to do them. And that's where it gets tricky. So before I say anything else, let me super highlight and bold and express to you guys that this is going to be the place where you need the most support. You're going to need accountability. You're going to need someone to tell you straight, this is what you need to be doing in order to stay on track and reach your goals. You're going to need emotional support when times get tough. You're going to need a place where you can get recipes and ask questions. And if you have a challenge, like you're going camping and you've never been camping before, you're going to need a place to get advice on how to handle those scenarios. That's inevitable. Some of you will need a lot of support. Some of you will not need as much. And over time, it'll get easier. You will not need as much support as time goes on because you'll learn and you'll practice. And it's just like picking up a musical instrument. Over time, you'll get the song, you'll learn the rhythm, and making these adjustments will be a lot easier. And you'll start to recognize the challenges that come up often. So please keep this in mind. You will need support. If you have questions, find a place to get those questions answered. Certainly, we are more than happy to be that place, but there's lots of places you can go for that support. Okay, here's the recap. Step 1, am I happy? If you're happy, keep doing what you're doing. Think about maybe if something's going to happen in the future that'll make you unhappy. You can tell, well, maybe I'm going to get bored later on, but I'm happy right now. If you know that something's going to come up later, consider whether or not you want to start practicing and come up with an idea for how you want to handle it. But if you're happy, stay the course. If you're unhappy, especially if you're not losing weight, the first thing you should ask is, do I have a plan? I'm unhappy. I've gained 30 pounds, but I really haven't been doing anything. So this 30 pounds comes out of nowhere. I don't have a plan. I need to make a plan, figure out what my next steps are to get this 30 pounds off. That step is everything that we talked about in the last video, video number 4, on our website, mhwonline.com. It is under weight loss guide. Then you have step number 3. I have a plan. Am I following my plan 100%? If you are not following your plan 100%, then you don't know if it would work or not. If you did follow it 100%, it might work. It might be everything you need. You may not need to change your plan. You might just need to get straight and make sure that you're doing it the way that you're supposed to be doing it. Separately from that, you can ask, does my plan need to change? These are the 2 options. Either you are not following the plan and you need to figure out how to get to it, or you are following the plan and it's just a bad plan. This is the part where most traditional diet falls apart. I'm doing my calorie counting, I'm doing this low carb thing, I'm doing this all juice diet, I've been taking these pills for 2 months, and I'm not losing weight. Well, time to make a change, time to find something that will work. When you're ready to do that, there are two overarching goals. Number one, stick to the 6 rules that we originally put in place in the plan making video. Always have those 6 rules. By all means, you can change the way that you do those 6 rules and how you want to apply them, but make sure that when you're all done, you got those 6 rules still there. Make sure that they are measurable goals when you apply those 6 rules. Because remember here, we're asking, am I following my plan? That's a yes or no question. Am I eating all the vegetables? You should not say, well, I'm eating some vegetables. I think I'm doing pretty good. You should be able to say, yes, I was supposed to have 3 every day, and I did have 3 every day. Or no. Sometimes the answer will be no. I was supposed to have 20 every day. I have not been able to get 20 every day. It turns out 20 is way too many fruits and vegetables for me to try and eat. That's okay if the answer is no. There are lots of reasons why the answer might be no. But you need it to be measurable. You need to have those 6 rules in place. And number 2, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing to try and adjust your plan has the end goal where you are moving further down the calorie guide. I gotta start over here. Further down the calorie guide. You're gonna start eating better foods. You're not gonna eat less, but you're gonna start making better choices that are further down the guide. If you can go way down the guide, awesome. But if you can't go way down the guide, even just going a little bit down the guide is okay. That happens a lot when you feel like you're doing pretty good, but you're still not seeing the results you need. I'm eating a lot of grilled chicken. I know that's not bad for me, but I'm still not losing weight. Well, you might want to go from grilled chicken to grilled chicken and broccoli. Or you might want to go from grilled chicken to fish. Just moving a little bit further down the line. You're doing pretty good, but if you're not getting the results that you want, we got to move further down that guide in some way. When you're moving down the guide, focus on the high calorie stuff first, the stuff that's all the way over here, those 7s to 10s. Because even if you just eat a bite of that, it might cause you to gain weight. Just 1 tablespoon of olive oil is 100 calories. Just a tiny handful of 10 peanuts is 100 calories, maybe more. Just a little bit of macaroni and cheese scooped onto your plate at a holiday dinner is enough to cause you to gain weight. I had somebody who just came into a group this week or last week who had appetizers at a restaurant. And there were 4 different appetizers, and she just had 1 bite of each appetizer. But when she told me what the appetizers were, we figured it was about 500 calories that she ate in just 4 bites of food. Put your attention on that red background 7 to 10 category first. But just remember, overall, you're trying to move further down that guide. Okay? So, if you're making changes, that's it. It is fairly simple, just those 2. What are the 6 rules? I'll recap them for you. You gotta eat fruits and vegetables. You need meal replacements. A meal replacement is just a measured, pre-portioned food that is self-contained. I don't have to wonder if this is a good choice because this is the whole choice. It's all done. All my work is done for me. We made a turkey chili. We sell it on the website. When you eat that turkey chili, you don't have to guess the portion size. It only takes a minute to cook. You don't have to really add any sort of sauces or spices to it, although I add a little bit of hot sauce. I like to heat it up a little bit. But the whole meal is contained. It's easy, it's fast, it's portable, it's done. You need meal replacements to do that. The most common meal replacements are going to be prepared meals, bars, and you may think of protein bars, but not typically. You want a meal replacement bar. They may be labeled as nutrition bars or granola bars in some cases can qualify, but those are very common type of meal replacement. Shakes are a very common type of meal replacement, but there are other meal replacements as well. It's anything that's prepackaged and pre-portioned and is a good choice. You know it's a good choice because once you know it's a good choice, you don't have to think about it anymore. Everything else is done for you. Physical activity, just moving on a regular basis, setting a goal and tracking your progress towards that goal. I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to weigh myself once a week. I want to come off my diabetes medicines. I'm going to check my blood sugars every day until they get into the right range they're supposed to be. I'm going to talk to my doctor once every 6 months to get my blood work done so that he can take me off this medicine. Record keeping, that is keeping track of what you're eating and what you're doing for physical activity. It's keeping track of these 3 things. You can either write it down or put it in your phone or have some other way of keeping track of these things, but the goal is that you know what you're doing. And then finally, support. You should always have a plan for where you're going to go when you have questions, because you will have questions sometimes. Some of you will have questions every single day, 10 times a day. Whatever questions you have, you need a place to be able to get them answered. How do we approach these when it comes time to make a change? Well, we can't take them away. They're always going to be there. But what we can do is we can try doing different types, eating different types of foods, different types of fruits and vegetables, cooking them in different ways, applying different recipes, different kinds of physical activity, taking different classes, doing different exercises, changing the way that we're doing things, the types of things we're doing. We can try doing more. We don't have to change at all. I like walking. I can walk more. I can walk 15 minutes a day instead of 10 minutes a day. If that's not enough, I can walk 30 minutes a day. Over time, I can just keep going up and up and up. And higher numbers is always going to be helpful, because every good choice you make is going to crowd out a bad choice. If I have an extra cup of broccoli, it's keeping me away from a bag of chips, or it's keeping me away from a cup of macaroni and cheese. In any case, it's a good choice. I can also try and do things that are higher in volume. This one's a little tricky to understand how it works and how to apply it. But the gist of it is that we're trying to find things that give us the most value for the least amount of effort. When we're talking about food, we're talking about big food, low calories. Big food, low calories. That is almost always going to be using foods that are further down the calorie guide and adding in more foods in that 1, 2, and 3 section. Big volume, low amount of calories. In addition to that, for physical activity, it's about getting a lot of calories burned in a little bit of time. That usually means increasing the intensity, working a little bit harder, adding some resistance, going faster. It's not always fun to do that, and you can't always do that. You're not always going to be able to work faster or harder or put in that kind of effort. When you can, though, it'll save you some time. And if you have the opportunity to, it's worth pursuing sometimes. For your record keeping and for keeping track of your goals, volume is about getting the most value for the least amount of input. So finding the things that give you the most amount of accountability. I'm more accountable when I share my records with other people than when I keep them with myself. I'm more accountable when I write my stuff down on paper than when I put it in my phone. Okay, you can think about getting more accountability in terms of volume, or you can think about what's going to give me the most amount of information for the least amount of writing. If I can't do anything else, at least I keep a tally for how many vegetables I ate today. If I can't do anything else, I'll keep track of how many minutes I did for physical activity, even if I don't have the rest of the detail there. Sometimes volume is about doing the bare minimum so that you don't have nothing. Sometimes your options are make it easier or quit, and we don't want you to quit. So those are the 2 ways to think about volume. Then you have timing, and that is just changing when you do certain things. It could be doing things more often. For example, maybe I want to do snacking more throughout the day, or I want to take breaks from my desk to get up and do more physical activity. It also could be just changing the times that you do certain things. Let me try pushing my breakfast back an hour, or let me try waking up a little bit earlier and eating a little bit earlier, and let me see if it has an impact on the rest of my day. That's timing. Does it allow me to make better choices when I move things around? The classic example of that is, should I eat before I go to the party? Should I eat before I go to the beach? Should I eat before I go to a restaurant? Should I eat before I leave my house? A lot of times the answer to that is yes. It's helpful, and you don't face as many temptations. You aren't as hungry if you eat at the right times. Okay, but you can also think about just any time. Should I move my meals around? Should I move my snacks around? If I'm going to eat late at night, is it better for me to have a vegetable or better to have a fruit? Is there a certain food choice that gives me better results when I eat it at a certain time? Same thing for physical activity. Do I like my activity early in the morning or late at night? Do I like breaking it up throughout the day? Would I get better results if I changed the time that I do my physical activity or my record keeping? Finally, environmental control. In summary, environmental control is changing your surroundings. I want to get the bad food out of my house. I want to put good food into my house. At work, I want to get rid of the bad stuff. The stuff I can't get rid of, I want to make sure that I can maybe move it to a place where it doesn't bother me so much. And if I can't move it and I can't get rid of it, then I need to bring other stuff in that I can have that I know is going to be a positive choice. If I want to do my physical activity, I'm going to need the equipment, I'm going to need the clothes, I'm going to need to go to the right place, I'm going to need to set up my space and make sure that I have the surroundings I need to make that happen. And finally, for environmental control, if I spend too much time hanging around the wrong people, then they might get me in trouble. Even if everything else is exactly right, I'm doing everything else I'm supposed to be doing, there are more temptations or more challenges based on the people that I'm with. That's a negative way to look at it, but the opposite of that is true. If I find good people to surround myself with, and if I talk to the people in my life and get their support, they can help make it easier to make good choices. So much of my personal success has come when I broke down and I was in tears and I said, please, please, to my wife or to my family member, I said, I can't do this. I need help. Can you help me with this? Is there anything that we can do to make this happen together? In fact, it is the reason why I am with my wife today. We had a conversation early on in our relationship where I had gained 30 pounds because I was so in love with this new relationship. And I had this conversation with her where I said, I really like you, but I need help. I can't keep doing this. I need a way to figure out how to put this all together. And she was able to do that with me, and the rest is history. Environmental control can be very powerful. It is the most successful of any of these strategies. If you want to not make poor choices, lock yourself in a cave where you're by yourself and you have to live off the land for the next 6 months, and you'll probably lose weight. The more that you can control your surroundings, the easier the whole process gets. That would be where I'll leave you on this particular note. So those are the places where you can go. There are lots of ways you can start to think about variety and pulling in these options and making adjustments to your plans. But let us now go ahead and bring up the plans that we made in video number 4 in the series. And I will show you a couple of different ideas for how you might start to make adjustments if you're not losing weight. Hey guys, I just wanted to take pity on you. I know this has already been a pretty long video, so I'm going to clip it here and I'm going to save the examples for a separate video just to give yourself some time to decompress and process everything that we've gone over so far. When you're ready, go on to that next video in this series and you'll be ready to see how we did the examples and put everything in practice. Thanks. Bye.